It's 7 o'clock and we have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda, as always, is citizens' concerns. Anybody who has any issues to address that are not on our agenda for tonight, please approach the microphone. I would add, because we've had some recent citizens' concerns that have gone on a bit long, that it's really an opportunity for citizens to raise concerns and for the board and the town manager to typically address them offline. So not a lot of back and forth. Citizens' concerns. Okay. The next item is Chairman's update. And where's my, maybe I'm not going to give my Chairman's update. Okay. Okay, first of all, we had a really nice Memorial Day observance on Monday the 30th. It was rainy, and we did not allow rain to deter us from our appointed rounds. Very moving event, as always. Peter Berry, our chairman, who, by the way, I have not deposed. He is on vacation, so he will be back at the next meeting chairing. But Peter Berry, Franny Osman, who is not here right now, and I were there. And everybody turned out ready for the rain, and by the end of the ceremonies, the skies were clearing. Mr. Berry did read the names of veterans who in Acton who have died in the past year, and that is always very moving. There was one veteran whose credentials, his affiliations, I don't remember his name, but he had actually served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Lebanon. The Acton-Boxborough Regional High School graduation was on Friday the 3rd. It was perfect weather, and Franny Osman and I were there, as was my husband. My husband and I aren't parents, but we have been attending the event every year since 2010. It's really exciting and poignant to see the newest graduates prepare for the next phase of their lives. There's a planning board hearing on tomorrow at 8 o'clock about proposed public shade tree removal on High Street in connection with proposed sidewalk installation. Sidewalk committee has done extensive evaluation of the sidewalk needs on High Street, and the sidewalk will improve pedestrian safety, and I think if you have any interest in sidewalk issues there, or you should go to that meeting. The League of Women Voters for the Acton area are having their annual meeting also tomorrow at Bella Familia. This coming Sunday, there's a celebration in commemoration of 100 years of Boy Scouting in Acton at NARA. Acton and Boxborough currently in recent years have had 3 troops, number 1, 32, and 284. Mr. Berry, our chairman, will offer opening remarks, and Senator Eldridge also will speak. There will be a 4-part presentation of the century-long history, a skit by the Scouts, and some sort of time capsule event. And I probably will be there. Next item, there will be a screening of a 2009 documentary called Shooting Beauty next Monday, June 13th, 6:30 at the Maynard Fine Arts Theater on 19 Summer Street in Maynard. It is for ages 9 and up. There's a $5 charge. It is a project of the Girl Scout Troop 75086, whose members participated in a very memorable mock Board of Selectmen meeting a few months back. This is their final take action project before they disband, but the film provides a powerful look at how we see individuals and how we define beauty. It is basically a documentary covering the experience of the filmmaker at the United Cerebral Palsy School in Watertown, Massachusetts. She has started a program called 100 Cameras Photography workshop, which places modified camera systems into the hands of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And the troupe will, before the film, have a short skit, and then there will be a discussion after the film, and any funds raised above the cost of the theater rental will go to the 100 Cameras project. Acton-Boxborough United Way will have their annual meeting on Tuesday, June 14th, 7 o'clock at the West Acton Village Works Gallery. And finally, I just wanted to provide an update about the proposed train station parking fee increases. The South Acton Train Station Advisory Committee has been publicizing the changes. They heard public output at their most recent meeting on May 26th. and they ultimately voted to reaffirm their prior recommendation of the increases. This board, it could possibly be discussing those increases at our next meeting on June 20th. We have received some comments from some residents and users, but for further information about the proposed fee increases, you should visit the town website, which has a new posting with the SAT-SAC recommendation as well as the proposed fee schedule. And that is all I have, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. First of all, last Wednesday we had a call with Standard & Poor's as we are getting ready to put out to bid the bond for Wright Hill, as well as some of the equipment that was approved at town meeting back in April. And at our next meeting, the board hopefully will be awarding the bond bid, excuse me, for those projects. So usually with calls like Standard & Poor's, they talk about the town finances. I think it went pretty well. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned that we would lose our AAA rating. They will be giving us a draft of their recommendations, I believe, this Wednesday, and we've got just a few hours to comment on them before it goes to the board at Standard & Poor's that would deal with the bond rating. So keep our fingers crossed, but I felt pretty good based on the call we had the other day. I think I reported the last meeting that the special legislation that enables us to acquire the Harris Street property has been signed by the governor, and now it's just a matter of coordinating a closing date with the Commonwealth, which is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. And about a year ago, and I can't remember if I reported this to the board or not, a movie production team was looking around town looking for some film sites, and they really like the old Office of Fisheries and Wildlife. It's a movie, Super Trooper 2. If any of you saw Super Trooper, it's a comedy about Vermont State Police, and they like the way that looks as a police station for their Super Trooper 2 movie. So we're in this awkward situation where they don't know who to talk to because technically the state still owns the building. We're going to acquire it hopefully in the not too distant future, and so we're trying to set up a meeting with DCAM to figure out how we're going to proceed. They need about maybe 3 weeks of shooting on site, and it wouldn't really interfere with anything we're doing at the moment. So it'd be kind of neat, and we'd get some fee out of it as well, but we're still struggling with who's got the jurisdiction. So there'll be more on that as we move forward. Also, I received a phone call from an organization called the William Noyes Webster Foundation that basically is a foundation that promotes medicinal marijuana, and they want to come in and talk to me about a potential site in Acton similar to the other company that came to us, was it last year or year before? I don't even remember. So they're coming in a week from tomorrow to talk to me, and that issue could very well be in front of the board at a future meeting. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We have a 7:10 hearing. I think I see Mr. Democrakis and Mr. Bertolami, if you want to set up. What I'm going to do is try to get through the consent agenda before 7:10. I never know which clock is accurate. Anyhow, so consent agenda. RHSO, which is Regional Housing Service Organization, intermunicipal agreement amendment. And if you want me to hold. Number 6, Eagle Scout Court of Honor, Benjamin Kevin Watcutt, June 24, 2016. Lisa, do we know who's taking that? Who? Oh, okay. Well, it's not pressing. It's still, we have time, I guess. Okay. Number 7, Board of Selectmen to accept Conant Street land acquisition gift. This is the acquisition that was approved at town meeting. Number 8, accept gift Recreation Department. Selectmen to accept gift of $407 from Max Stout from an Eagle Scout project fundraiser for the relocation and restoration of a bench at Nara Park. Number 9, committee appointment, Christina W. Richlick, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee Representative for Acton. Number 10, committee appointment, Steve Noon, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, FinCom Representative. Number 11, committee appointment, Mike Majors, 348 to 364 Main Street Master Plan Special Committee, FinCom Rep. Number 12, committee appointment, Patricia McKnight, 348 to 362 Main Street Master Plan Special Committee, Acton 2020 Representative. Number 13, one-day alcoholic beverage, Maureen Mousseau, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, Nara Park, July 16, 2016. Okay, hold that. Okay, number 14, one-day alcoholic beverage, Eileen Suliotis, Nara Park, June 25, 2016. Number 15, request to dispose of obsolete items, Acton Memorial Library. You held number 13, Franny?
I was just wondering, there was something about the police thinking they needed a detail because there were so many people, and I didn't see how that was it resolved with them getting a detail, or I wonder if we can give them a license.
Well, this is July 16th. We could hold off approving it until we clear that up.
Give it contingent on them resolving that with the police, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough time because they're not doing their event until July 16th. So, I mean, why don't we just pull it and then just approve all the other items?
But I don't mind not looking at it again if we want to do it just contingent, as long as they work it out with the police.
Okay,
Have a
that's fine. Do you want to
conversation.
make a motion?
Should I move that we give the one-day alcoholic beverage to Maureen Mousseau, Nara Park, July 16th, 2016, contingent on them having the conversation with the police department, and if the police require a police detail, that they get one.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yep, I seconded.
Oh, you second? I can't hear. Okay.
Sorry, second.
Okay, any
Quiet
further
tonight.
discussion of that item? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Now, do I have a motion for the rest of the items in the consent agenda?
I move to approve consent agenda items 5 through 12 and 14 through 15.
Okay, we want to have a face-off. Okay, either Ching-Sung or Franny seconded, so anyhow. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining. Thank you. Now, to the hearing. The Acton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on June 6, 2016 at 7:10 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204 at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, on the application of Country Properties LLC for a site plan special permit under zoning bylaw sections 10.4. There's something wrong with here. At 429 Great Road, Acton, anyhow. The applicant is proposing to construct a vehicle sales and vehicle service station building. The application and accompanying plans can be inspected at Town Hall during normal business hours. Now, Katie, I understand you're the assigned selectman.
Correct.
I will defer to you to sort of introduce everybody, run the discussion.
Sure.
And all that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, well, this is just to orient everybody where the former Pegasus Tack Shop was on Route 2A in sort of northeast Acton. And the proposal is from Leo Bertolami to build a, as the notice said, a car service and sales facility, thank you. So it's fairly straightforward site plan, and I will turn it over to Mr. Bertolami, and I'm going to go with George, because your last name's tough.
No problem.
George?
George Demokrakis from Stamsky and McNary on this site plan submittal. The proposal is for, well, the removal of the old Pegasus structure, which I think just happened, today, but it was in such disrepair that it virtually took itself down. So the proposal is for a roughly 8,800 square foot new building and associated driveway and parking. On this aerial photo here, you'll see the new building is the brown, and the proposed driveway is in gray here. And let me orient you to, there's a little strip mall that has Colorworks and Acton dry cleaners here. Across the way, there's the day spa, Calico here, Workers Credit Union up there. And of course, this is Great Road, and Harris Street runs way behind here. So we're right in this strangely shaped lot there. This is just a representation of the existing condition where the building was here. There were 2 existing curb cuts. This was the parking area. And as we get a little bit closer here, again, Great Road running along here. This is the driveway for the small strip mall next door. The former building location was there, very close to the street. And this actually went before Board of Appeals and got relief for the front yard setback, but it's actually set back further than the previous building, so it's actually an improvement over where the previous building was with respect to the streetscape. The driveway entrance is now here as opposed to where it was there. And this is essentially a driveway. You enter the site, there's the service entrance here for getting cars serviced, but then the parking is actually beneath the building all the way around here. And it's a very constrained site with respect to setbacks and other things. There's actually a limitation on the maximum number of parking spaces that we can have, which is 16. So it's by default, because it's in limited business, it's a fairly modest proposal when compared to some other zoning districts in town. So all of those parking spaces are contained within or beneath the building, including the handicap space and bicycle parking. And then there's an elevator and stairs within the building. If you're interested in some of the data, the data is on sheet 4 of 6, which is the land use table. It talks about compliance with open space and parking, floor area ratio, and all that sort of thing. But it also shows clearly where the parking spaces are aligned here. There's a loading spot back here behind the building, a dumpster location here, and again, the entrance to the service bays is here. Naturally, the site plan submittal went before the various town staff and departments, and there were a number of comments. Engineering, I spoke with Paul, where we had some discussion about some drainage issues, which we can work out and resolve pretty easily. There was some indication from DRB that they didn't like the amount of exposed concrete along the street side of the building. So this is actually a new accurate representation of what will be there. And you can see this is the facade of the building. This is the first floor level here, and the finished grade there will be brought up to be in line with recommendation of planning to keep the grade within 2 to 2.5 feet of the first floor, so that you don't have a large exposed concrete foundation in the front. Otherwise, we naturally prepared lighting plans and met all the necessary requirements. There's landscape plan showing a fairly dense buffer of vegetation in the back there, and of course wherever there can be plantings there are. This is the area where the apartments are on Harris Street, so it makes sense to have that densely planted there. Everything else is essentially commercial around it. But the plan has also received Board of Health approval of the septic system. And that's about it. Anyone, did I miss anything, Kate?
No, I think that's about it. The only thing, when we spoke last week, I asked about kind of what proposed, if there's a specific dealership or anything, and George indicated that there wasn't a specific dealership at the time, but that you were hoping to do, but that you'd be coming back once you had figured out exactly what you wanted to sell there for the license or permit to do that from us as well. So that would be before us.
I figured it'd make more sense
right.
to come back for the licenses
Right.
when we actually knew it was going
Right,
to go on,
once you know,
rather
yep.
than to go for the license with a shell. Now, that could be as quick as 30 to 45 days, or it could be 4 or 5 months, but it'll
Right.
be before 12/31 of 16.
Right. So that's
Because it takes so
just
much time to
get
process
everything
those.
ready. Yeah, yeah. So just so everybody knew that. But otherwise, are there any questions from members of the board? Franny?
So I just want to clarify, the DRB comments, they were dealt with? I was reading the list of DRB comments, and there were a couple that I just wanted to make, that concerned me, and I just wanted to make sure that I couldn't tell from the date. So what you're showing us now reflects changes that you made after they made?
It's
Design Review Board?
Yes, it is. It's our changes in response to the Design Review Board's comments. We didn't make all of them, but there was that particular front, show the retaining walls properly, show the grade such that there's not a lot of concrete showing. We did what we could. We did go back to them after their comments, which
Okay.
was last Wednesday.
Yeah, I brought the architect last Wednesday, and we had a meeting. They could not vote, though, because they didn't have a quorum. So the members listened. We said we'd drop that facade to about 2.5 feet of concrete showing, and we'd drop them off a set of plans after the fact. They know that, so they could just have on file to look at. If they have any problems, I'm sure they'll give us a call, and we'll try to get it worked out. But it's what they wanted, the 2.5 feet, so that's what we did.
The one that sounded concerning to me was about the only one entrance into the garage?
Yes, and that was added, actually. Good. That was a good observation. There was a secondary, there's now a secondary egress
Oh, okay.
shown on the plan.
Okay, and so I was picturing it, I meant to go there beforehand to look at, but I wouldn't see anything, so.
Right, that's right.
So it's good I didn't. I mean, I know the building and I know the area, but I just wanted to make sure you weren't just entering a garage, but it looks like you don't. It looks like you
Right.
go through the parking lot before you
Right,
enter.
you go through and then gently descend behind the building and go into the garage. The fact of the matter is, there's a septic system that has to go in next to the building, so it, in fact, sets the height of the building, not just that there's a garage there. So it wouldn't really change even without the garage. So
Okay.
we're pretty constrained, like I said.
Okay. I guess I would want to make sure that they are be approved after, since they didn't have a quorum, that they, before you went to the next stage, but I don't know if we can.
Well,
sign
DRB
it.
is just an advisory board, so
I
they
realize
don't
that.
have approval authority.
But I wanna make
also
sure
have-
that there's-
I also have some comments about follow-up that meeting from
But
last
can I-
to the...
Okay, but I have noticed from being on an advisory board for years, on Transportation Advisory Committee, it was frustrating. We would spend all this time looking at a plan and putting in our comments, and so I see what you're saying, that we can look at their comments and just see that they're done. I just want to make sure that they are listened to. I mean, since they are advisory to us, I want them to be listened
Right.
to. And I'm not capable of following it's between the engineers and the architects on DRB and the engineers here, they all can tell if it was complied with or responded to better than I can.
So, right, my point is, we can't require them to comply with suggestions from DRB, but it's also, unless they're things that are under the zoning bylaw, we really can't require that anyways, even if we wanted to, but we can require that they go back to the DRB to consult with them, and when I spoke to George, and as he indicated tonight, they are willing to do that, so we can ask that they go back to it, but not that that they have to get their approval on a design.
Okay.
Okay. Janet,
Sorry.
questions?
Well, since you brought up DRB, I thought I should address it. I was going to address it anyway, because I did get feedback. The chairman was on vacation, and so they were a little bit under their usual number there. And plus then, for this particular project, one of the people who was present had to recuse herself because she's a tenant of yours, Mr. Byrne, one of your companies. I don't know which one it is, but anyhow, I think her office is located in some property that you own. So that left them with sub-quorum, and they really could not have, they could make comments, but they couldn't weigh in officially. They did submit an earlier set of comments, which basically are similar to what they told me informally, which is that they're a little bit confused about what's going on the site. I think that it would be helpful if you're willing, either as a condition of our approval or before we actually approve, to go back and have, just discuss with them fully the issue with it, just clearly explain to them that you've dealt with the whole concern about the foundation.
Janet, we showed them 2.5 feet of what was in the foundation, and as George does say, the septic system determines the height of the structure. So there's no more than 2.5 feet of concrete showing, which most of our homes here in Acton, there's a couple of feet showing.
Their other concern was about the basement. Now, I don't understand, I haven't looked at the plans closely. Honestly, when you're looking on a laptop that has a screen like this stuff doesn't really show up very clearly, but I gather that you said the parking is going to be underneath the building. Is that what the basement level is for?
Yes.
For the parking, which is why it's fairly low. They were talking about the height of the ceiling, and they were wondering what it was for. It wasn't clear to them what the, and these are people who look at plans. So, you know, I don't.
We've had at least 3 meetings with the design review board, 2 of them staffed with architects and engineers and myself.
No, I think
we've done
as far as I can tell, you've had, what, 1?
No, we've had
You've
multiple.
had 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 to 3. Manny and I, the architect, were there last Wednesday night.
Well,
Well,
But there wasn't a quorum.
last week doesn't count because it wasn't a quorum.
I know, but I told them I would bring them plans within a week of their next hearing showing 2 to 2.5 feet of foundation exposed on that building, and that's the way it's drawn, and that's the way we intend to build it. And once again, not to be repetitive, the septic system judges the height of everything on that building. It's kind of a very difficult lot.
It's because you need to have a septic system. Of course, this is where we get into the issue of where we could use sewering, but you know, that's a whole different headache. You know, there are a lot of places that could use sewering, that, you know, commercial areas that could use sewering, and it would relieve a lot of burden on developing septic systems that can accommodate the limited space. The only other thing that the DRB brought up was in their original opinion, which I don't know if the design that you were talking about that gets rid of the foundation is after, I think this is April 15th, this plan.
Yes.
And I don't know if there's a revision. My eyes aren't that good even with these glasses. So, but it looks as if the front is doesn't have foundation, although it's, who knows, it's very faint. And then
let me describe what's going on there. So So what you have is a plan that did not represent what was really in front of the building, and that was one of their comments. That grade plane that you're seeing in front of the building was not representative. So now here, you see that there's a retaining wall here, and there's one here, and there's a modification to what the grading plan showed to minimize the foundation. So it is updated from what you're looking at and from what. Now, they informally on Wednesday saw the new plan, correct?
Yes.
And
I told them I'd bring them another set.
Yeah, I think that they probably, what they would like to do is, because they didn't have a quorum, I mean, they weren't able to give you, the stamp of approval or whatever officially, and, we're not architects, engineers, and, we kind of, well, I do. I rely on them and others, the planning department as well, to kind of confirm that everything is as it's supposed to be. And so
Well, yeah,
it would
it's-
make, I mean, it certainly, it happens that they're my liaison committee, and I like to support them, but, but it's also that they have actually been doing a very good job. Yes, they're an advisory board. We have a number of advisory boards. Some of them are better than others, and they're one of the ones that started out maybe not being as strong, but they built their credibility, and now they actually, they have a good team in place, pretty strong, and it would be nice to keep them, engaged by, actually considering their advice and not just saying, well, they're advisory and we don't have to listen to them. So it would be great if you were willing to go back with the revised plans and just, talk through, make them understand the changes in this, which is apparently what they have otherwise seen.
Well,
right?
just in fairness to the applicant, I think, we went before them twice with the ZBA, and they got a review of the plan after that, and now we attempted to go on Wednesday. And the application has been, in the book since April 22nd. We were hoping to, if anything, get something like a recommendation that we go back and present the plan to them, but beyond the scope of this hearing, so that we can incorporate, it's not that we incorporated everything we think that we could have in the plan as we have it now. The secondary egress, raising the grade in front. Initially, we're missing a whole process of when we did go to them to develop the plans before we even filed for site plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been through, not arduous, but a definite, process with them. And rarely will anyone do everything that the DRB wants to do, but I do think we made a real concerted effort to get as close as we can, and we're still willing to go back and, show them that it's improved, and we can explain to them that the septic system does drive the condition, and we can't just eliminate it and all of that sort of thing. So we're still willing to talk to them. We're hoping that we can move the process
But you
forward.
don't want it to hang up our
And Janet,
decision-making.
not for nothing, this has been through the planning director, the assistant town planner on 2 different occasions, and then the new assistant town planner wrote the letter, been through the engineering department, Board of Health, in every department which is site plan orientated, and there are no problems. We made sure of that. So, design review board, and I think it's more than 3 times now, because I forgot about the Board of Appeals with the crazy setback with that building on town property, or whatever it was. I think it was 8 inches over closest to the road on town land or something.
I feel as if this project has been around for a while. It started
So,
out, maybe last year or something,
We would
yeah.
just like to get your nod. I said that I would bring the plans back to them, if they want me to come back for another meeting after that, but I don't need to bring an engineer and an architect and go for my 5th or 6th meeting with the design review board, especially if there's no comment from staff. And I think you can understand where I'm coming, nothing disrespectful, because I will go back, but if everything looks good, which I think it does, we'd really like to have your blessing tonight as the Board of Selectmen.
What town staff, those, I know that we have a reputation sometimes for not being very applicant-friendly, because we have all these approval processes, these different departments and committees, but, the department people they have different distinct roles and areas of authority or expertise, and the design review board came into existence because people felt that that was an aspect of building that was not really taken into consideration, and accounted for the fact that some of our commercial development had not been done very attractively, and they're actually, who knows, if you've been before them, I didn't realize that you had been to see them as part of the Zoning Board of Appeals process, but presumably you've actually taken some of their advice to heart, so you probably have a better project than you started out with. So in my experience, that's,
No, they're a nice
yeah.
board, they really are.
No, it has nothing to do with being nice. It has to do with knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So, but all right, I will keep that in mind. That's the only issue I wanted to bring up, and, you know, I'll see what I think we should do if we decide to close the hearing and make a decision, so, thanks.
Are there other questions from board members? Okay, any questions from the audience? Okay, so my recommendation, based on the comments from town staff, and you saw there's a draft decision from the planning department in our packet as well, my recommendation would be to close the hearing tonight. In the past, we have done this with the condition, again, that they go back to the DRB for, you know, to show them the plans and for consultation, and I would recommend that again, but not with any, you know, other further requirements. So I don't know if other people have any comments or concerns with that.
I would second that.
It wasn't a motion, but.
It was a motion.
Okay, so then first I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
You want me to do the whole vote and everything? Or you want to take over voting?
Well, yeah. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. And then we need to talk about what you want in the decision, to the extent that it's the same as or different from the draft that we have.
My only recommendation would be to include a condition that they, you know, bring the revised plans back to the DRB for consultation. And I think that would address most of, I mean, the other staff comments, there were comments from the water district, but they weren't anything that I think were things that wouldn't wouldn't happen out, you know, that are, I mean, they're required kind of outside of our process. And there were some comments from engineering about the drainage calculations, which are being addressed. And then there are just the typical, you know, conditions that are generally in all of our decisions.
No, I think that proposal for that one modification in the decision, or I can't find the decision.
It's
Yeah,
separated from the packet, so if you go all the way to the end, it's another
Oh,
stapled
okay.
piece. You can have my copy if you want.
This thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I thought.
You want
I
mine
had
too?
it, you know, it just,
Here.
I've got bad girl, Janet. It's just like, because I don't remember what was said in here about, was there anything about going back to the DRB?
There's nothing in here currently
Okay.
about that, no, so we'd have to add it as a condition, and then Robert can just redraft it, and, I mean, Peter's not here to sign it tonight anyway, so.
Yeah, and I don't know where we want to stick it, but
Probably, you know,
Under-
5.10, or so, you know, 5 point,
just stick
whatever.
it in, you know, chronological order, okay?
Yeah,
So
there's
just,
two 5.9s, so whatever.
Yeah, 5.10.
Yeah, so probably 5.11 or what, you know, whatever.
We
Or
are
we could just
touching,
say, you know, added to the list of conditions, a condition that they bring plans back
They
to the
consult
design.
with the DRB.
And consult with the
with,
DRB.
You know, about the revised plans that are addressing the DRB's
Yeah.
concerns, so that's fine, okay.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the decision as drafted by the planning department presented before us tonight, with the addition of a condition that the applicant bring revised plans back to the design review board to consult with them about the revisions.
I'll second, if nobody else is going to second. I don't know if that's,
Kosher?
okay. Is there any further discussion? This is very weird. I've never known where to cut off, you know, when you defer to the assigned selectman,
Yeah,
and then when you
it's
take it
fine.
back. I mean, usually I think the chairman kind of manages if there's
The vote.
a rowdy crowd.
Yeah.
You have to do, but anyhow, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as read and seconded, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Thank you. right, now we just killed 1 billion trees with this stack of paper. All right. All right, we still have 20 minutes before our next appointment. So, Mr. Manager, do you want to talk about electric aggregation? Do we have time to talk about that? Do we have time to talk about
Absolutely.
electric aggregation?
I hope so.
Okay.
Okay, well, as the board knows, back at the annual town meeting in April, town meeting accepted the statute that allowed the town to go out for electric aggregation and, in essence, try to save our residents and businesses some money in terms of their electric bill. And basically, how the process works in Massachusetts, there are three consulting firms who work with communities. Part of the requirement of going through electric aggregation is we have to develop an aggregation plan that has to be approved by the Department of Public Utilities. And then, once that happens, then we're allowed to go out to bid to try to procure energy at a discounted rate. So, several things that the consulting firm will do is, one, work with us and basically walk through the regulatory process with us. Two, put out the bids, help us analyze the bids, and three, do a lot of outreach, both, for the community, because it is very confusing. It's an opt-out situation, and there are a lot of private entities that do robocalls to folks saying they can do this type of thing too. So there's a lot of education that's a key component of it. So on May 11th and 18th, I put together a review committee to interview the three firms that do this type of thing in Massachusetts. And the committee consisted of Mary Smith, who is on the Green Advisory Board and also procures energy for Harvard University. Steve Long from Green Acton, a private group, also was on the group. Andrea Ristine, the municipal property superintendent, and Matt Selby, our land use economic development director, and myself. So, as I said, we spent May 11th and 18th interviewing the three firms. And then just last Wednesday evening, we got together, compared our notes. I had checked references on all three firms, talked to town managers that I knew that had utilized the firms of all three companies. And I think the interesting thing is that all of them are all very good. They're all very competent. Almost to a situation of flipping a coin. All the managers I talked to spoke highly of whomever the firm was that represented a particular municipality that they utilized. We did our own scoring sheets, and interestingly enough, the company, and we had three companies, and three companies are Colonial Power Group, Good Energy, which is through the MAPC, and the Peregrine Energy Group. And as we did our own individual tally sheets and then we compared our own notes, all five of us ranked Peregrine Energy Group the number one, with Colonial Power Group number two, and Good Energy through MAPC number three. And I think there are a variety of reasons why we probably all individually felt Peregrine was the best of the three. One, the president of the company, Paul Gromer, is the former Massachusetts Commissioner of Energy Resources, so he knows the game. He knows the bureaucracy of going through DPU and things like that we thought was certainly a high value. Another person who was part of their team is an individual named John Shortsleeve, and John, back in the 90s, was one of the leading proponents of municipalities buying streetlights from the energy suppliers, which we did. So John has always been kind of on the cutting edge of trying to save costs and energy for municipalities. And finally, I think we're very impressed with how they'd go about doing their community outreach. And I think we're particularly struck with their ability to do outreach to the non-English speaking community. The woman who is kind of their education outreach person actually had worked in Acton with English as a second language, and they have the ability to do flyers, et cetera, in Chinese, in Indian, or whatever we may need. Because I think it's going to be a lot of outreach that will make or break this this program. So, based on all that, our recommendation would be for the board to direct myself as town manager to negotiate a contract with Peregrine Energy Group. Happy to answer any questions. I left my tally sheets downstairs, so if you really want to know, I'll go down and get them.
We have any questions from the board? Katie?
The one question I had, I know we had, when we were originally looking into this, I think we were, consulting with MAPC, and they were going off of what Good Energy does. And one of the things that they had spoken about was that that individuals would be able to determine the sort of green energy level, that they would select. But it seemed to me from the presentation included in the packet from Peregrine that that's not the case here, that it would just be selected by the town as one, or is that not the case?
We would basically choose 3 options for
Okay.
citizens that'd be a default, and then there'd be
Okay.
one that maybe is partially green and one that's more than green. And that's something that we need to discuss with the board when we get to that point, but all 3 firms had that flexibility.
Okay, and so there would still be options for
Right.
individuals to say, yes, I want more or less
Exactly.
green energy. Okay, that was my only concern,
I mean,
otherwise.
the only question we would have to talk to the board about is
What's
if
the
we're going to
default?
offer 3 options, what proportionate
Yeah,
green
Right.
options would we want to do? And, we'll kind of have to figure that out once we get through the DPU stage and get ready to go out to bid.
sure. That makes sense. Okay, all right, thank you. Otherwise, I thought it looked good, and they looked like a good company, and spoke to one of the members offline just casually, and he had mentioned that he thought they really stood out in their presentation as well, so I think they'll be a good choice.
Any other questions from the board? Yeah, I had a follow-up question about the sort of the greenness and all that and the 3 choices. Is there a certain, it sounds sort of like the investment options you have for 401k plans, where there's a certain amount of individualization that can happen, but I assume that there's a limit too, that you must have to have a mass of people interested in one option in order for it to be viable. I don't really know how this works. If you have 3 options to pick from, we don't all end up in one option, right?
Right, and my understanding is, well, first of all, the default would probably be just a non-green component, but the board can actually choose. I mean, the default rate actually could have some green components. So, I mean, to answer your question, we're really going to need to bring the consultant in and take some time at a meeting and discuss that, because there are a lot of nuances, and we don't want to overburden everybody with a whole mess of choices that you just get overwhelmed. So I think one of the first basic discussions is whatever we consider the default. If you don't opt for the other 2 choices, is there a green component? Is there not? One of the consultants, I can't remember if these guys or one of the other 2, said they were working for a client that the default was 100% green, and there's all those kind of options, but I think the consultant needs to lay those out to the board.
And do you have any sense of how long it will take before we're ready to, actually roll this out and have people
Well, the goal really would
opt
be,
out if they're not interested? But
the goal would be to have bids out before, let's say, November, so that the rates could be locked in before the winter months, which usually is the good thing. This last year was the anomaly where actually if you went out to bid in January, February, probably would have done pretty well. But that would be the goal. So it takes, they're going to have to work really quickly. It takes a couple of months to get through the DPU process, and then there's the whole public outreach, and we're going to have to spend a lot of time with at the senior center and things like that, because it is you know, it's going to be a different concept than what people are accustomed to.
Yeah, and I guess obviously as part of the outreach, people are going to want to have somebody say, tell me how much I'm going to save if I go with this option, and you know, they're going to have to look at their own bills, and some people may have trouble doing that, figuring
And
out.
they can always opt out anytime they want. It's not like, you know, it's not one and done. You can always opt
Right.
out if you don't feel it's working for you, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? No? So you want us to move basically the last sentence in your memo?
Correct.
All right, I will make a motion to recommend that, to authorize the town manager to finalize a contract with Peregrine for electric aggregation consulting services.
Just a second. Franny seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Done. And we still have, okay, should we talk about special town meeting? We still have 8 o'clock. It's 10 minutes away. Yep.
Okay. If you recall at the last meeting, the board discussed bringing the issue of increasing the CPA surcharge to a fall town meeting, and then subsequently, if in fact it was approved at town meeting, bringing that matter to the annual town election in March of 2017. We started to look at potential dates at the high school, and it's getting exceedingly difficult. They have a pretty full dance card over the high school, to the point where only a couple dates were really even doable at the auditorium, and those were in November, one being the week of the presidential election, the other being the week of Thanksgiving, which we didn't think were two great weeks to be having a town meeting. So that left us looking at other choices, particularly the upper field house, which sounds like, if in fact we want a town meeting and we want it in October, that would probably be the best bet. And if you recall, I can't remember how long ago, 6-7 years ago maybe, we did have a town meeting that was primarily held up there, the citizen petition that wanted to lower taxes by using our reserves. So, you know, it certainly is doable. But part of the issue when we get into October, we run into both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Also, middle school is having open house. And then the last couple of weeks of October, the town clerk, under some new changes in the law, has to stay open late to allow people to vote early if they want to vote early. So it comes down to like 2 dates in October, unfortunately. So one date is October 5th, which is right after Rosh Hashanah, I think.
What day of the week is that?
That is a Wednesday night. Unfortunately, if we go 2 nights, the 6th is the middle school thing, so it would kind of push us to the following week, which would actually be the 13th. So that's kind of what we're down to, is October 5th and 13th for town meetings. So I know it's kind of early, but my sense is if we're going to have a fall town meeting, we should probably call it now so we can make a reservation, because the whole fall, we're down to like 2 days.
And would you explain what, aside from the CPA surcharge issue, would potentially be on the warrant?
Right, well, we probably have 2 other, this is not counting consent, but 2 other articles. One would be, we are accepting proposals for a lease for the senior center. June 16th is the deadline for filing the proposal, so conceivably we would have a warrant article to authorize a lease for the senior center, and probably maybe some type of appropriation. And the other pieces are reported, I think, at the last meeting. We do have a tentative agreement on the fire contract, and while the union hasn't ratified yet, it's one of those issues where part of that agreement would be the town starting advanced life support paramedic service. We have to give SMERA a 6-month notice prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year. So if we wanted to get into paramedic service July 1 of 2017, we'd really kind of need to take action and to ratify the contract in this fall. So those are the three main issues. I mean, we have some other easements and sidewalk easements and stuff like that, which would probably be for consent, but the three biggies would be the CPC surcharge, the COA lease, and then the fire contract.
And the fire contract, I know from when we were talking earlier, it's, if you're calling a town meeting, you basically have to put it on whatever.
That's
the
part of
next
that's
one.
part of the agreement,
Yeah,
correct, correct.
If we were to call it. All right, well, any comments from the board?
Sounds reasonable, and it would be in the upper gym, it wouldn't, okay.
Anybody else?
I kind of feel like it's a fairly light agenda, so, I mean, is there a reason why we shouldn't just wait until fall to finish all that stuff up?
You mean, wait until April?
Yeah, sorry, spring, yes, April.
So, again, with the fire contract, that would allow us to go into ALS and give the notice to SMRA. With the senior center lease, it would allow us to potentially enter into a lease at the beginning of a year. And with the CPA surcharge issue, we have to put it on a ballot after it's brought up at town meeting. So if you wait until April, you're then waiting for a very long time until another statewide or townwide ballot, as opposed to being able to do it in a more compact time.
I mean, so
frame.
I understand there's some relevance to moving quickly on the fire contract, and maybe on the senior center thing, but I don't really see the need to move extremely quickly on the CPA surcharge, and I think that, I don't really see a huge pressing need for us to have another town meeting in October. I mean, we've been doing a supreme amount of town meetings, and I feel that, we should avoid calling town meetings for light agendas, when we just can put it on the annual town meeting and leave it there, especially since the CPA is a tax issue. So
I'm going to say that I disagree with that, and I think that there are enough issues that have time.
Try to work me into this
Sorry,
somehow.
I'm sorry. Put my hand up and then I just went for it. Would you like to call on me?
That's fine, Ms. Green, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
I think that there are enough time-pressing issues, and I do think that I don't think anybody's trying to rush into CPA, but I think that makes sense to have the town meeting vote and the ballot vote be at, times that are closer to each other, rather than doing it in April and having to wait potentially a number of months until you can have it on the ballot. When you discuss it, I'm still speaking, when you discuss it at a town meeting and then be able to have a vote, not as many months away, it keeps the issue fresh in people's minds. And I do think that resolving the fire union contract in a timely manner is important, and I do think that resolving the senior center is going to be potentially of importance. And there are times, I understand that it's frustrating that we had a number of town meetings last year, but there are times when issues come up that we have to deal with them for a variety of reasons, some legal and some not, within a certain time frame. And we've been lately trying to move towards a two-town meeting structure anyways, and I think that this would keep it consistent with that idea. And so I would recommend calling the town meeting on October 5th.
Shing-Sung, you had something to say?
I just wanted to comment that the time difference between an October and a March ballot is fairly close to the time difference between a April and a November ballot. And so I don't really think that there's a huge
There wouldn't be a
incentive there
November
for the
ballot
CPA.
that year, so we're talking about an April and a March of the following year ballot.
Oh, yeah, you're right, because it's November this year, right? That is
The
true.
CPA ballot question can only be on the annual town election or a state election. It can't be a special town election. So if we did the annual town meeting took up the CPA, you're basically talking on 11 months or so, or 11 and a half months, right?
Franny, you have something?
Well, I like moving ahead quicker. People get so frustrated, and I do too, at the slow pace of town government. And if we have a way to speed up some of these things, like the senior center and like I can see with the CPA, I don't know if it comes into play, but there are a lot of big land purchases coming down the path, and if we can increase our income into CPA, I don't think it would hurt sooner than later.
All right, it's my turn. Yeah, I really think that from our last meeting, Bob Evans's point that, you know, if you've got an item like the proposed increase in the surcharge, which is going to hit the taxpayers' pockets, you really ought to have it on the annual town meeting when all the other big budget items are. Otherwise, we can move the school budget and the town budget to a special town meeting in the fall and see how much that pleases everybody. But I do have some concern, and I also have some concern about having, you know, the senior center lease appropriation also stuck in fall town meeting for the same reason. I just
Be a lease authorization. I think we talked about this back before town meeting in April, that there's some gift accounts that we could utilize to have an architectural look at whatever space there is, and probably be bringing the appropriation to the spring town meeting. But in essence, would it authorize the lease?
Okay, so, well, that, yeah, okay. But I still do have some concern, and it's basically it's my underlying concern about the whole idea of increasing the surcharge. I don't think it's a great deal for a town like Acton, and the bulk of the extra funding that's going to be coming is going to be coming from doubling the hit on every taxpayer in town. And, you know, I think that I was just, not that this is applicable to us because we don't have the kind of independent revenue source that Littleton has, but Littleton has obviously taken the mixed approach to CPA, where they have a chunk of money, I forget what the percentage is, 1 or 1.5% going in as a surcharge, and the balance is they take out of general funds. And it depends on, you know, what the mood is, what the finances are. That was an option that the CPA study committee rejected because it didn't seem, we didn't have that kind of a funding source to draw on. And but what struck me when listening to the town administrator for Littleton talking about that approach is that it gives a lot more control to the taxpayers, the voters at town meeting, about how much money they want to spend in a given year, whereas the surcharge, assuming it passes at town meeting and it also is approved on the ballot, it's there. You know, it's there, and you pay it unless you move out of town every, you know, whatever it is, with your quarterly bill. It shows up, and even though it seems like a not consequential amount relative to the total tax bill, you take enough of those not consequential amounts and you aggregate them, and it comes to get to be a substantial amount. You know, I understand, I think that the CPA funding is a really wonderful thing, but I think that if we're using the bulk of our funds on land purchases, this has been an issue that's been around for a while. We've got to figure out alternatives to come up with the money and give people a chance to vote on it every time. That's where I'm, yes, Katie.
But I appreciate those comments. I just don't think that this discussion tonight is about the CPA surcharge. And, I think we will get into that over the coming months, and people will have differing opinions on the CPA surcharge. But I think the question tonight is whether or not we want to call a special town meeting in October. And again, my only point, I appreciate Bob's concerns with having something like that happen at annual town meeting. But again, I think that timing-wise for something like this, it just makes a lot more sense to do it in the fall when you're not going to have to wait for a town meeting vote in April and wait an entire another year where people are going to forget about the issue to do it again and vote at it in March. We're going to have to re-educate everybody on either side about what this means. So again, this is not an issue that people will just be approving at town meeting. It's a two-step process. And so I think that voters will have more than ample opportunities to be heard on this issue. So I don't think we're here tonight to debate the the CPA surcharge, but rather about whether or not to call a town meeting. And I think that having at least those 3 issues for me is enough to necessitate an October town meeting.
But I do think that the CPA surcharge is one of the driving reasons for even considering having a special town meeting. I need to read this notice. I'm about 5 minutes late. The Acton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on June 6, 2016 at 8 p.m. in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room in Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, for an order to show cause for an alleged overservice incident at Makaha Restaurant, 255 Great Road, Acton, Mass. The documentation may be inspected at Town Hall during normal business hours. Anyhow, we need to finish this discussion. This is, I mean, the concern I have is that the CPA surcharge is really kind of the big reason that we're even thinking about a special town meeting. And the fact is, once, well, it'll happen in the fall, and if special town meeting approves it in the fall, then it goes on the ballot, and there's sort of, I'm wondering how much opportunity there is going to be for people who have reservations about it to actually hear and be heard. But anyhow,
There's between now and October, and between October and March, for people to do public outreach on both sides of this issues. And just as a reminder, I mean, the board did vote to recommend the surcharge. It was a split vote, but this board is on record in support of that. And again, to me, it's not whether we're supporting that warrant article or anything tonight, but are we calling a town meeting?
but it's just that, yeah, and
even if you're not supportive of the article, that's it's not as though we're going to have an October town meeting, that means the CPA surcharge is passing. It just means that will be an article on the town meeting, and we'll have plenty of time to debate that in the coming months.
Well, yeah, the trouble is, for me, is that the substance of the article is bound up with the idea of calling a special town meeting. So, yeah, I tend to not want to have a special town meeting where the driving purpose is to really deal with the surcharge. The other things are, the fire contract, it actually sounds to me more important than the surcharge, because if we want to do this ALS and we have to give 6 months notice, which means that in order to participate by July of 2017, then the timing is such that it would make sense for us to approve the contract in the fall. Okay, I understand that. Whether the senior center lease approval comes up, okay, that's fine. That's sort of filler. It may or may not come up. But it seems to me that the only reason we're talking, because this came up when we were talking about the surcharge, was we were talking about fall town meeting in connection with the CPA surcharge. We had not had a discussion about fall town meeting up to that point in connection with anything else, because there was nothing else on the table for us at that time. And so I think that the two are intertwined. Yes, Katie.
My last point, again, is just that being opposed to it doesn't mean that it shouldn't. I get that there's a need to, that you're against that warrant article, but it's going to come up other way. And I guess being opposed to it doesn't mean it shouldn't necessitate an October town meeting. And I think that, it's not trying to set this up in a way so that this is a win, but it's just setting it up in a way that's logical, because I don't think making people wait an entire year to vote on an issue that they just voted on makes a lot of logical sense. I think doing it in October and then March is just a lot more straightforward for voters. And if we're talking about trying, Bob's point and other people's points, to try to make this most straightforward for voters to understand and be able to take action on, then doing this way, to me, is a lot more democratic than making people wait an entire year to vote on an issue that they voted on before.
Well, why not next October? I mean,
we could wait till
October 27th,
but I guess I don't understand
Yeah.
why. We had a committee to discuss the issue. They've come to a recommendation. This board has voted its support for it. And I don't understand why we'd wait until October of 2017 when maybe we don't have any other issues to have a fall town meeting on. And I think that, at least we have a couple other things, the fire contract to me being the most important there, or most time sensitive, that it makes sense. Again, I'm fine with people being opposed to the CPA surcharge. A lot of people will be, but I just don't think that should mean it automatically equate being opposed to an October town meeting.
Well, okay, I think
That's the
that,
two
okay,
things
on the
separate.
basis of the fire, sort of the whole fire union issue, I'm willing to vote in support of just calling a special town meeting with the understanding that what happens between now and then is anyone's guess, and maybe it won't happen.
That's fine.
So, but what we do have to take care about is that people don't start showing up and saying, oh, we want to throw this into the mix, and then we end up with a fall town meeting that's almost as burdensome as the annual town meeting. So anyhow, but, all right, so does somebody want to make a
I
motion?
think we have a constituent audience member.
Yes, Sid, Mr., go ahead.
Very
I was trying to be
briefly,
formal.
As
but-
Sid Levitt of Minot Avenue, I think I'm sort of active in the senior center, and I think all the seniors are kind of expecting the town meeting, assuming that you have a possible lease. You may not. But if you have that, we're all expecting that, and would be quite disappointed if you don't have that town meeting and discuss the senior center. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, does somebody want to make a motion?
All right, I'll move to call a special town meeting for October 5th, 2016.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay. All right, now to the hearing. I've already read the notice, and I just want to make a few comments. You folks could set up at the microphones. I just wanted to make a few introductory remarks to just provide context. This is unusual, this hearing, because it pertains to an incident that occurred over a year ago in March of 2015. But it's one about which the Board of Selectmen learned only recently, basically after the Concord District Court proceeding concluded. I want to make clear that in scheduling this hearing, the Selectmen aren't piling on. The Chairman and I agreed that a hearing was necessary given the Selectmen's responsibility for acting in the public's interest, including on matters of safety, and given the particular facts, a multi-car collision and injuries to a passenger that required a visit to Emerson, which are precisely the risks that we as Selectmen and the local licensing authority are trying to prevent. Scheduling a hearing was our only responsible choice as public officials. First, to secure information not already in the meeting packet, such as any receipts or statements from the licensee, and second, to ensure that the incident, investigative reports, and other information is preserved in the Board of Selectmen records. Video equipment, as I understand it, was not installed at the time of the incident, so there's no recording to review, but if there are drink receipts, which the police department asked the licensee about immediately after the incident to retain, we'll be able to at least see those. The licensee, I would add finally, has been before the Selectmen since the time of this incident on unrelated matters, and the Selectmen have been able to see video recordings and also received assurances from the licensee and council about the videotaping system and the provision of proper training to servers. So I see this hearing as an opportunity to gather more information for the record and not to lecture and the like. So, gentlemen, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourselves and to provide an overview. And one of the things I would request, because I was looking at the file, was that you translate into English the Concord District Court's sort of summary of what was going on, because a lot of letters that meant nothing, and all I could see is maybe April of this year was the end of at least this stage of it, and until sometime next year. So, great.
Certainly. Good evening. Deputy Chief Rich Burrows. With us tonight is Detective Fred Rentschler, who's our prosecutor, and we also have Officer Doug Mahoney here. The officer who wrote the initial report, Matt Hammer, is on vacation out of state. Officer Mahoney was his field training officer that night, so he was with him and can testify to everything that was there. The plan is to have Detective Rentschler go through just the facts of the case, and then if there's any questions, we have Officer Mahoney if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you. On Wednesday, March 4th of 2015, as the board is aware, the Acton police were called to a motor vehicle accident at 6:34 in the evening. Officer Hammer was dispatched, as well as Officer Mahoney, to the crash. It was Officer Hammer's report that we're working off of. As Officer Hammer investigated the crash further, it became apparent that the accident was caused by a subject rear-ending one vehicle, and then that vehicle was in turn forced into the vehicle in front of it. Three-car, kind of accordion-type accident. The officer found the subject responsible for the accident still seated in his motor vehicle. The officer then noted that the subject had a strong odor of alcohol as he spoke, and that his speech was slurred, his eyes were bloodshot and glassy. And due to the severity of the crash, as the board already knows, one of the occupants of the other vehicles was transported to Amberson Hospital by Acton Fire. While that was going on, the fire was attending to the other parties of the accident. Officer Hammer began his field sobriety tests of the operator of the motor.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I just realized that we're supposed to get witnesses sworn. Clerk? Yes, you're supposed to swear. I've
never been the clerk when we swore
do like
somebody in
TV and
before.
just swear in the
Lisa.
witness. I just sitting here and I thought, oh, there's something missing, yes.
So I don't have the wording of what I'm
You don't
supposed
just
to
say,
ask.
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And you can add God or not, but,
Do you swear to tell the
Well,
truth?
first of all, I don't think Detective Venture's a witness, so I don't think he needs to be sworn in, but I think anybody else
whoever's going to
will
be,
speaking.
yeah.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure so we don't.
Not a problem. Would you like me to start over, or?
No, that's all right.
All right.
It's technically imperfect, but it will do.
Very good. So the officer, Officer Hammer, again made observations about the subject operating the vehicle, exhibited signs of alcohol consumption. The officer then had the subject perform a series of field sobriety tests. The test included a one-legged stand test, a 9-step walk and turn test, and a counting backwards exercise. As a result of the test that the officer administered on the subject, Officer Hammer formed the opinion that the subject was intoxicated and placed him under arrest. The subject was transported back to the Acton PD, where he was given the opportunity to take a breath test. The subject did consent to taking a breathalyzer, and he scored readings of 0.11 and 0.11 respectively, which made it a valid test. As a result, he was charged at the Concord District Court with the offense of operating under the influence of liquor. Fast forward to April 6th of this year, the subject did plea out to a continuance without a finding at the Concord District Court. As a result of making that plea, facts similar to what I've just read to you are read to the court, and at the conclusion of the plea, the judge then asked the defendant several questions as part of giving the plea. And under oath, when asked where did he have his last drink, the docket that you have is kind of convoluted, but it does reflect he had his last drink at the Makaha, and that's essentially why we're here.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point from board members? Okay. I don't know if at this point we should hear from the applicant or, the licensee, or if, or maybe, officer, do you have something to add to the version that we've just heard? So just so that I can clarify, the first that we heard, the reference to the restaurant, was in April. This is the first we knew of that Makaha was involved. Because I thought that there was a reference in the original report that led somebody to go to the restaurant to ask them to preserve the receipts or whatever. And
That night, during the course of the investigation, they asked him where he was drinking, and he stated at the Makaha that night, which led us to have Lieutenant Cogan went over to the Makaha to make notification that the incident did occur and to preserve and save any evidence
Okay.
relative to that incident.
Okay. Because it's my understanding, another reason we called the hearing was because in order to get the receipts, we had to do it in the context of a hearing. But there's absolutely no other information, that documentary information, I think, that we can get other than the police reports. So, yeah, because that was the subject of some discussion as to whether to call, even have a hearing or not. But given the extent of the accident and the injuries, we decided that it was the only appropriate thing to do. So, all right. Franny, did you have a
Yeah,
question?
I'm a little confused about what the purpose of this hearing is. Sometimes we think about, when we hear of these things happening, we we suspend their license for a period of time or something like that. And you sound, by thinking about not having a hearing, that this is different because it was before those other things we talked about and before the taping system was in there? Or what is the purpose, is my question. And also, why didn't we hear about it? Why can't we hear about it? Why, through all those discussions we had, like, we've had Makahat in front of us, right?
Yeah.
And nobody ever said, oh, by the way, this year, March 5th, somebody apparently had had their last drink before causing an accident. So that's another question I have. The purpose of tonight, and also why?
Well,
that
I mean, the purpose of tonight is, it's like any hearing, it's for us to conduct our own investigation of what happened, because we issue liquor licenses, and we're responsible for making sure that the licensees are acting responsibly. That's really what the purpose of our having any hearing. I think that, though, in this instance, you know, to some extent, our ability to do that is compromised because the incident is so old, and you know, frankly, there's no video, and so the only information that we have, other than the police reports and any witnesses that happened to be around and wrote sworn statements at the time, you know, contemporaneous statements, is the receipts. But it's really because of the fact that since then, we've had the restaurant before us on other matters, and we came to terms about, okay, the recording equipment and the training of the servers. You know, this is something that probably ideally should have happened a while ago, and so I don't want to sort of belabor the issue by sort of going over the stuff that we've gone over, say, last year when we had a hearing. Because what happened is a more serious, it's exactly the kind of thing that we don't want to have happen, but we've already issued warnings about other things that have come up involving the same licensee.
Why didn't anybody say at those times?
That I don't understand. It has something to do with the process, the reporting process, and you know, I don't know if it's that you want it to make its way through the criminal court system a bit before we start opening our own investigation or hearing about the matter.
As of the night in question, the subject was suspected of operating under the influence, and he was criminally charged, but he's innocent until proven guilty. So until there's a plea or a guilty finding, there's no guilty. And upon either a guilty finding or admission of sufficient facts, that's when there's the 9024 N or J that kicks in as to where they had their last drink, to confirm that.
And that's where, I mean, if there was no violation, then technically then it's questionable that you have a service violation, because there was no traffic moving violation that was caused by a serving violation. I mean, they're sort of linked together, so, okay. And in this, was this unusually long? This is typical. It takes a year to.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, if you have 5 minutes, I can explain the whole statewide breathalyzer, Draeger controversy. This case fell into something that was outside of our breathalyzer machine, but affected all the breathalyzer machines in the state. This test was administered during a time period where there was a discrepancy in the simulator solution. Operators were not catching that the simulator was giving a wrong number, and the machine counted a valid test when in fact it wasn't. It was just an operator error, but it was a software glitch. So all the machines in the state during this period of time, all those breath tests were carved out, and all those OUIs stemming from those machines or that time period, they were just kind of put in a shelf, and slowly some of the offenders are playing out, and others are still fighting the technicalities of the machine. So that's the long answer. So this was in that group. So we were kind of stuck because we couldn't push it along. We had to wait for the defendant to make their own choice.
So did they resolve the problem with the machine? So
It was a 2-month window, and it was a software matter. It was taken care of, yes.
gosh, you know, you depend on computerized stuff so much, and when it doesn't work, it really messes things up. So, all right. Are there any other questions or? Yeah. So
but in general, even though somebody's innocent until proven guilty, as soon as you know that there's an incident, you do gather any tapes or any information and talk to them in that information. You don't wait until they're proven guilty before you collect all that stuff, right?
Correct. We notified them the next day, I believe, of the incident that took place the prior night.
So, then can I ask, did you receive any receipts from that evening?
We have not received anything from them as of this time.
Okay, then I'd like to hear from the licensee. Just a reminder that we need to swear them in as well.
One of the things I want to make clear, Rennie, is, the Concord District Court process is for the driver. The guilt is the driver. Our process is completely different. We're not a criminal court, and we're not dealing with, so I just wanted to make clear, because when you're talking about they're getting information, they were talking about getting information from the restaurant, making sure the restaurant conserved the evidence.
But I mean, I know the innocent until proven guilty is the person, but but gathering the information seems really important to get.
But they don't actually gather, they just make sure that it's preserved. And that's why we don't...
Oh, you mean they don't take it into their hands?
No,
They just tell them to hold
if
on
they
to
had it, we would
for our
have
hearing.
it. But we don't have it until we have a hearing.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay. Well, while you, I see representatives of the licensee up here, maybe you could swear him
Hey, how are
in
you?
as well.
Raymond Chang, Makaha Restaurant manager and owner.
I'll swear you,
Yeah, everything
do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
true, the whole truth, nothing but true. Okay. Okay. Before I start, I just want you to know this incident occurred like over 15 months ago, and after that we have two incidents. I don't know if you remember. One was a lady. We also saw the video. She was having okay, and the other one was a subject was pulled over near the subway on Great Road. And that incident, I was immediately bringing it here. And I also saw the video that he left an hour ago from my restaurant with the takeout. And then another hour later, he got pulled over with a white bag takeout. I think, I don't know if you remember that. Okay, so why is that incident bring to the court, bring to the hearing 2 weeks after, and this one doesn't? That's why I don't understand too. And another thing is, ever since what happened last year, we still keep our training and the meeting the last Sunday of every single month. We have a group meeting about how to serve, or any troublemaker, we try to stop them from coming in. We have that meeting too. And again, till today, we never have anything violation after that incident. And I just want to, make sure, people understand our effort. And what happened that day was it was a Wednesday, around 2:30. 3 men came in. One of them is a regular. And they sat down and we talked, and the regular man who's the one who paying that bill. And he said, oh, this guy is a Leominster police officer. And 3 of them, they just sit down and eat and drink, and things like that. The total of 3 people, they stay about 2 hours. Total drinks is 8 Mai Tais and a whole bunch of food. And by the time around 4:30, and the regulars, he asked me, can I leave the car here? And I think I'm going to call my mom to give us a ride home, because we thought we'd have a little bit more drinking. So I said, good, you can leave the car anytime you want. So moments later, and his mom came, and she sat there for a little, maybe 10, 20 minutes, and they left together. And his mom did not have any drink at all. And so that means, they are doing the right thing, and I let them do it because they have someone to drive them home safe. And right here, And I don't want to say his name in the public because you can look at it. One of his name is, I asked him to be here today as a, testify, but too bad he having a business trip in New York right now. But if you want to, we can schedule for him to answer some question. He is the one paying the bill with $106.95. And also his mom number was there too. You can verify with that. And they have the business in Acton. And okay, that's not key. The key is if you look at the slip, the credit card slip, the time, the check out, the payout is 1634. And on the police letter that I get 2 weeks ago, and it say March 4, 2015, and he get arrested or whatever accident occurred 6/34.
No, this is this is the reason that I wanted to hold the hearing. It's one of the reasons that we have the hearing is also, for the licensee to have an opportunity to present her side of the story. And, it's precisely this kind of information that kind of creates a question as to, okay, because there is a time discrepancy. So, it's always possible when you have somebody who gets stopped that he's not being truthful when he's asked, well, where have you been drinking? And something pops into mind, and it may be just a convenient name. It may not be accurate. So, but they ate a lot of food. Yeah, but they're. You said they're three guys. It's three people, and they're guys, and they ate a lot of food, and they drank a number of Mai Tais, but it was in combination with the food. So, all right. Are there any questions for? Yes, Brandy.
It doesn't seem like that much food to me. But I do wonder, do you have evidence? Or does this fit with anything that the mother actually drove away?
They did. They left together.
So apparently he must have come back later to get the car?
That I don't know. That we don't know. Until the next day, I get the notify from Detective Conant that he gave. I wasn't there when he came. He just gave the name about this person. So we kind of figured out, if some officer must be this party because that night was slow again.
And did the police, do you have any information about that? To piece this together, to just show that it really was, they really did drive away, not in the car right after this.
To answer your question, I don't think I'm to drive them away safe, I think these two names here is a perfect answer to you guys.
Right, it shows it's 2 hours later.
That's why, yeah.
So.
Because the mother drove everybody home.
Right, so
we assume, I did not go out to the parking lot and check. But that's what the gentleman asked me. Can I leave the car here for overnight? Because my mom is coming to give us a ride home. I said, perfect
right,
move.
That's the last thing. I just wonder, process-wise, like why we can't get this information beforehand so that we don't have to go through a whole hearing. But I don't know how these things work.
Before I forget my question, one of the issues I see that makes it difficult for us is we don't know who the driver was. We don't have the identification. And I assume that or at least the regular, you don't know. I don't know if this person is one of the regulars or if he's one of the other people. You presumably know at least one of the people who was of the three, right? So what I don't know is whether there's any overlap between these people and this.
But,
Because-
okay, but also another key is, when they ask for a check, I don't see them visually, they are intoxicated. I don't see them at all. They thought no one better than what they think. They think they drink too much. That's why they call a ride. And I absolutely give them a credit for that. And to serve someone like intoxicated, have to be visually intoxicated. I mean, we learned it from the ABCC, we learned it from the TIPS program.
But they all came in one car. They came in one car that was left in your parking lot, and then the mother came and drove all three of them.
I can't recall because it's, I mean, I didn't even
You don't
look at the
know.
parking lot on that day, but, you know, it's been
You
a while.
don't know if one of them might have driven off in his own car, and might have been driver number one.
Yeah, that I can answer
that-
you,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
Honestly.
sort of, you know, this is an issue that we would have encountered even if we had dealt with this a year and a half ago, is
Right.
because we don't have, everything is blanked out, so we
But
don't know.
my
when
job
it
is make sure everybody are safe, get out of my restaurant.
All right, any other?
You know, whatever they did after that, I have no idea. Plus the time left is, you know, what they did after, in the 2 hours, I have no idea too.
Ching-Sung?
Can the police confirm whether or not the person arrested for operating under the influence was the person whose full name is listed on this sheet?
It's a different person.
It is a different person. Okay.
And just to clarify, the person listed here was one of 3 people. So when they asked, I mean, he's one of the 3 people that was, you know, right. So it doesn't matter whether the name is here or not. I mean, to me, hold on. We're going to work on not speaking while other people are speaking. To me, I think the reason that we call these hearings, Franny, and the reason we kind of have to do it this way is just sort of how the legal process works. And Raymond, again, I mean, we're frustrated. It took a year for all of this to happen, but, you know, as the detectives explained and the deputy chief explained, that's just unfortunately how it has to make its way through the court before we're allowed to do it. Fortunately, having this receipt, I think, clarifies we've run into these issues before where, you know, somebody had a drink and then an hour or a few hours later is in an accident or is pulled over, and maybe this was the last, you know, restaurant or bar where they had a drink, and so that's why they said that, but they could have been drinking, you know, at home afterwards, or, you know, had something in their car or whatever, we just don't know. But this accident did take place 2 hours later, and if they still had the blood alcohol level that they blew when they were taken into custody, we can assume that there was, or presume that there was probably some drinking in between. So to me, I think it's, you know, clear that we can't make the assumption that there was any over service in this case. So, you know, again, you know, it's unfortunate that there was this accident, and these are the kinds of, you know, public violations that we're trying to avoid. But to me, I don't think there's any evidence that the over-service happened at the Makaha in this case. I think it's just, unfortunately, somebody that chose to, maybe they didn't get behind a wheel drunk when they left that establishment, but they did at some point, and that's an unfortunate fact, but I don't think the Makaha's fault in this particular case.
And as you say, we have, since this incident occurred, we have encountered a case where the time when the person was stopped and the time when the person was last drinking was big gap, and it was sort of implausible, unless the person was really hypersensitive to alcohol, that the person would have just gotten that blank-faced before being stopped. So anyhow, any other questions, comments? Any questions from the audience? I don't know if that's appropriate, but, you know, anyhow. Yes, sir. If you're here to say something in defense of the restaurant or whatever, you probably should be sworn in and identify yourself.
My name is Anthony Cardulo.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. It's odd to be here again. Franny, I appreciate your candor in recognizing that this is not the first time that Raymond and his establishment have been brought in front of the council. It's unfortunate that we're here again discussing a case that's over a year old, 15 months old, and it is reminiscent of more persecution than prosecution. And as much as I understand the need to uphold public safety, Ray has proven himself time and time again to have the exact same itinerary in his handling of alcohol-related incidents, to the point that the ABCC, the statewide body on this subject matter, has determined Ray to be not at fault in all previous matters. So to be here again and have the word "again" brought up, that word is beginning to lose its meaning here. We might as well treat this like a first-time thing, because all the other things have been wiped clean. The problem I have is seeing Officer Mahoney here, and our prosecutor, and our deputy chief, wasting their time. Officer Mahoney needs to keep our streets safe. Our prosecutor has cases to prosecute, and our deputy chief, I'm sure, has better things to do than to discuss a 15-month-old case. Will there be more incidences of related alcohol in the town of Acton? I'm sure there will. But as you said, Franny, is there any way we can get this information beforehand to determine whether a hearing is relevant or not? I wholeheartedly support that initiative, so we don't waste our policemen's time. We don't waste our business owners' time. And this council serves to uphold Acton businesses, uphold the interests of its citizens, without appearing like a bunch of bullies just looking for a fight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to find no violation.
Second.
Second? Ching Sung, second? Okay. Any further discussion? Mr., did you have a final statement, or?
Right, can I know I'm here all the time just to answer all the questions about, what the problem is. And can I borrow, like a couple minutes to say how I feel about the whole situation in the past 2 years?
Yes?
Okay, thank you.
Before we vote on this issue, we're going to do this?
Well, it's pending. Let him finish, and then we'll finish the,
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah. I've been here for 20 years, and I love the business. I enjoy, the customer here. And 20 years, I make more friends than anywhere. I'm from Boston, and I have more friends from Acton, more than anywhere. And the thing is, I want to say something is like, a woman have family problem, and he end up at my restaurant having a chicken wing, and just one sip of alcohol. And I have to bring the lawyer here. I have to come here Monday night. It cost me $2,000. And the next accident was a man pulled over near the subway an hour later. And I saw the video and everything. I proved that he said he's from Macau having like 4 beers, I believe. But the video showed he only had 2 drinks. That night, it cost me $2,000. And I tried to stop a man from driving. I shut him off. I called a cab. He refused the cab, and I called the Acton police to make sure this young man doesn't get into trouble, because a young man lose a license like that is difficult for his whole life. And I think about that too. The thing is, it turned around. It cost me $15,000 to have a lawyer, and 4 weeks lost liquor license for the revenues. And that's a lot of money. I have to sell a lot of poo-poo platter for that. And the thing is, I look at a lot of videos, hearing from the local restaurant, liquor license holder along Great Road. I watch a lot of that. And I think I get an unjust treatment. People like that, just like this, same thing here. The first time I get $320 fine. Even I have the state police officer to testify that it is not overserved from Macau. I get $320 fine. And next time is someone walking down the street and I also have the customer identify, come here testify that my bartender refused to serve him, and also an hour later, he's walking, and I get suspended license for 3 days. And the other restaurant, same thing, sold accident, no fine. Or the selectmen say, I'm sorry to have you here. Have a good night. No fine, no nothing. And I tried to save a man's life and get my license revoked. And when we went to before that, during the hearing here, I remember you asked the chief, police chief was sitting right there. You asked him for the recommendation. What is the punish for Makaha? The chief say 1 week. And all of a sudden, I get a treatment, revoked license. I just want to know, is any scale of punishment from different people to different people? 1 week suspension to revoke the license. I mean, this is more like 2 days in jail and the life penalty. And I still remember when we went to the ABCC hearing, the whole thing, the commissioner asked the town councilor, after what I did, he asked the town councilor, what else you want Mr. Chen to do besides shutting off, call a cab, call the police? What else you want Mr. Chen to do? And she goes speechless. She can't answer that. So because of that, I lost so much money. And now I want to request is, if something happened like that, is it possible the chief or the town official look at the video before you bring me here? If the video show that I'm really guilty, overserved, things like that, I'm glad, I'm here and get punishment. But if not, you look at the video, say, some subjects say they have like 4 or 5 Mai Tai, the last drink is a Makaha. But if the video show, I'm glad the video helped us a lot. If the video show he only had 1 drink and walk out of my bar safe, don't bring me here, because it's cost me a lot of money to do that. And cost me an image on the paper too. And right now, even today, still people calling, are you serving liquor? You get your license back? Even today, honest to you. And just, thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. I understand that this has been a very frustrating period for you, and it's probably scant comfort to you that the vote to revoke your license was a divided vote. There were those of us who didn't agree with that. I also think that we have, I guess in past year, tried to put together data on all of our liquor license hearings, just sort of, because I think it's important to have some continuity, to not just do certain things for one person or one owner and not for another. I mean, you need to have consistency. Otherwise, our credibility as the issuers of licenses will be undermined. And I think that, that is something that, I think that we're aware of in trying to sort of professionalize. But unfortunately, I understand that you're frustrated. Honestly, there are people I hear from who are customers of yours, people I know very well, and they talk highly of your place, and they might not come here to testify, but but they.
I'm glad to hear
so
that.
you do, and so for what it's worth, you do seem to have, as you say, you seem to have friends in town, and some of them actually are willing to come here and support you. So, but I think that based on, the developments of the last year, I think that you have the recording system in place, you have the training in place, and, I'm hopeful that going forward, we won't see you anymore, except if we go to your restaurant.
Anything happen, I'm glad. I respect the drinking law probably more than anybody else, because I'm the liquor license holder. I respect that. And I know people who walk out and get pulled over, I probably won't see them again. I would love to have return customer. I don't want them to go out and lose the license driving and I never see them again. You know, I always know return customer is the best advertise, and I always build on this on my business. So I just like, you know, I respect the drinking law, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt.
No,
I just
thank
want you
you
to know this.
Yeah. Thank
You know,
you.
thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, so one of the thoughts I had, though, is with regard to our reliance on the say-so of the drivers who get pulled over, and then they say, where, you know, in response to the question, where were you drinking last? And they mention your restaurant or some restaurant, and that may or may not be true. And maybe, you know, having a little bit more verification on of that information before it gets to the point where we're pulling in restaurants to be questioned would be helpful. So, but thank you
Thank you very
for
much.
sharing.
Thank you.
Yep. Katie.
There's just one, I appreciate your comments, and, you know, I understand it's been a very frustrating process, and I think it has been for all of us, and none of us like any of these over-service or alleged over-service hearings that we have to go through. But there's one thing I want to clarify, and that's your request that the police view the video beforehand and make a determination. But the problem is that we're the licensing authority, and the police aren't. So they, you know, it's up to us, unfortunately, to be the ones to see that video and to make that determination. And I don't want to spend hours. I've spent hours of my life watching people at a bar and drink, and I don't want to do that. None of us want to do that. But I think it is important to just understand that that is sort of the purpose of, you know, why we have these hearings. And so we do go off of, you know, the chief's recommendation when he recommends to call this or not, but the viewing of the video and the seeing of the evidence, unfortunately, is really our role to do that. And so that's why we end up having to have the hearing to make this determination. And, you know, again, tonight we've had that hearing and it's clear there is no issue and we can make that determination. And I think we do try to be consistent with our various different license holders in town, but I think that is just something people seem to forget, that we're the licensing authority, and so we are the ones that have to legally have the hearings and hear that evidence. So that's the only point that I would make, and I understand it's a very frustrating process. I think it is for all of us, but I just want that to be clear.
Thank you very much.
So again, there's
Bernie?
I keep thinking about, you know, isn't there some way to have more involvement of the police? Like, we have police details for the side of the road. You know, is there a way we can somehow make the relationship between the bars where people are drinking and the police somehow more common and friendly? I haven't figured it out. But it does make me think when you said, you know, when we're going by their word, and this is going to sound crazy, but maybe when somebody gets picked up and they're being driven away and they say the last place I was just drinking was Makaha or whatever, maybe they should drive by on their way to the station, drive by, and right then and there say, can we see the receipt? And that would be settled right then and there.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is I really appreciate in the past, not the past year, just like I said, I've been here for so many years. I have the police officer come in and say hello and, you know, things like that all the time, used to be. But in the past year, you know, maybe the relationship between Makaha and the town is really awkward for them to come in. But I'm more than happy to see, you know, people here come to the restaurant and, you know, see how we work out, how the, you know, our system is. Our drinking law, our drinking system is no different to Yangon Park or any restaurant down the road. There's no difference. They come to my restaurant, they go to go over there too. So this is the same customer we see every other day, every other week, same people. So you know, I'm more than happy to see you guys in my restaurant. Just from my heart.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've detained you long enough. So we have a motion and a second to find no violation, right? Or take no action, or whatever it was that you said, yeah. Anyhow, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sure. You want to, Mr. Chen?
Mr. Chen, I just wanted to say, I appreciate that. I mean, I feel for you in the stress that you must feel, knowing that there's always this fine line, and also, just appreciate having a lively business in town. So we do the best we can do. Thanks.
Good night. All right. So, are we done?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Good night.